Jerry, can you, what's up? Can you guys do a, can I film you and do a Jerry, and I can just get like pissed off? Would you guys do that?
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay, I have, if I can, I have my laptop, yeah, and if we could just see if we
I'm here for you, Jerry.
You are a peach, Constance.
He's known me since I was like 12.
Yeah, I've loved her since she was 12. Okay, so
that's like what, 3 years?
Yeah. You're beautiful. Free pass for this man.
Everybody, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It wasn't really my fault, or was everyone stopping me? I mean, right?
Everyone stops you. Everyone. And their mothers.
And then what?
He's earning his money.
Except for my mother.
And I love Constance's parents.
It's true. In fact, I think that they wish that he was theirs instead of me.
I'm the older brother Constance never wanted to have.
It's true. He scared away many boyfriends.
I have one of those. Some certain connections of mine, but I don't know what it goes into yours. See, that's real fancy. I don't know what that is. It's just a, what is that? A Mac Air.
What
What do you got? Let me see that. Will that work?
If it was an Elvis, how many people here?
Hey, Billy. This guy here.
Go away! And you came to this panel? Thank you. I also have something on the other side too.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's just a laptop. It's just
Okay,
a
let me.
Mac.
Do you have a, here, hand me the laptop.
Yeah, this. There you go. This works. Doesn't this work? Oh, no, maybe not. Sorry.
Here, let me.
Oh, I have this. See, I have one of these, but then I don't know if I have one of these for yours.
I have this.
Billy, you want to start talking to these folks and I confess with this?
Sure. Oh, we got huzzah! All right, we worked.
You figured it out.
We'll see if it works. Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm Billy Tucci, and thank you all, especially you, for coming to this panel, for coming to my panel. I don't know if anyone know who I am? Like you? Okay.
Anybody just looking for a place to take a
You ever
nap?
heard of a place to nap? I know this place for. You've been to some winter panels, haven't you?
Yeah.
We had one of the most epic panels ever, and I don't know if it was in this room. It might have been because it was out of the way. It was about 3 years ago, and it was. Does that work? That's my laptop.
Yeah.
Tucci, yeah.
Woo!
And then there's a little folder on it. Where's my computer? Oh, it's all the way over here? It works like that? That's cool. I'm a boomer. You young kids would know what a boomer is, right? Right, you know what a boomer is, right? I'm a boomer. Right.
I thought you were 15. There we go.
All right. Yeah, that's. Now there should be a folder there. Again, guys, I'm sorry. I was doing a sketch. Yeah, zoom out. Like away, smaller. Because there's a panel. If I hit my panel, would that pop up if I hit the folder?
Yeah, so this should be just mirroring your screen. So let me see.
I just opened the folder up.
Oh, you know what? Here, can I?
Yeah.
I think what we have here is a double screen situation going on.
A double screen
Yeah, so
situation.
you've got, see, your cursor's off this screen, but it's on this screen. So if you want to show this here,
So I look at that way?
hold on.
Hey.
So.
All right! Yeah, Rocketeer, hooray!
So,
Okay.
but the
Yeah!
I have to figure out how to get into your screen settings because you've got a double screen going on here, so you want to mirror it, not split it.
Anybody a Mac person here?
Really?
No.
Where are your settings?
Settings, so I can do.
Yeah, just take me to your settings.
This is some References?
Nope.
Green doc, yeah, okay. Displays. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, but I haven't found any naughty stuff. I'm so excited. So, okay, everybody, my name is Billy Tucci. 25-year veteran of the comic book. Thank you. And how do we go to the next one now? Yeah. We can just look at the Rocketeer all day. That's pretty cool.
So you have to minimize, and then you're in your folder. So your folder's back here.
Okay, so let's.
So you can, where do you want to go? Tell me where you
I want to start hitting those, so I can, if
Okay.
I tap your shoulder, it'll
I
do
will,
that.
the next one, and you'll just have to deal with the screen flip. Is that okay? Don't judge me. This is, you got the B squad right now.
The Rocketeer. Okay. First of all, again, I'm a 25-year veteran of the comic book industry. I guess I broke into the industry in 1994 with my first self-published comic book called She, which is a modern-day samurai story. Next year, 2019, will be our 25th anniversary. And I'm really excited about that because I will be relaunching She via Kickstarter in January or early February, and it's She, Return of the Warrior. But we'll get to that after. This panel here is called Punching Nazis. And it's basically the history of comics and how, the history of how history has played a big role in comics. But then all of a sudden I was doing my research and finding comic book images and doing Nazism and stuff and started seeing images of today, you know, of how things are and how you know, the political climate. And I'm gonna go with how I see things. And then let's open up for discussion, but we'll also talk about comics and we'll come back to the fun stuff. So Constance, if you don't mind going to the next image. I thought it would be a lot easier and I could just click it.
Yeah.
That great cover, right? Captain America. Oh, so this is obviously, you know, Captain America, 1941, before Pearl Harbor even. And I just think it's wonderful to show of you know, well, I think it says it all, doesn't it? And that's kind of the comic that launched 1,000 Nazi punches. So we can go to the next one, please. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's because they're not all in one file.
Okay. If anyone knows this image, be this guy. This was at a German rally in 1938, I think it was. And if you look, this is a German workers' rally for the National Socialist Party. That I think Hitler was there, and he was meeting with workers. And you look at, there was thousands and thousands of people, except for this guy. And I think that is one of the most powerful images of pre-war thing. And I forget his name, it escapes me. I knew it a week ago when I was preparing all this. But that's my whole point, is be that guy. Can we go to the next one? Okay. All right, Wonder Woman, right? 1941. This is Wonder Woman #1, and she's leading the U.S. forces as they're storming the trenches of the Germans. If we go to the next one, Constance, I was fortunate enough to be able to do a homage cover to that, and of me. And now I'm also a stickler for reference and research and stuff, so I wanted to make the German helmets and the German weaponry and all that more akin to the time period. But there's our Amazon princess storming through. Okay, we can go to the next one, please. Now, even Superman, right? Look at that, with you know, just great images of this wonderful time of not wonderful time, these dark days, but when how the country came together for a common enemy. You know what I'm saying? This wonderful time for comics, I guess, the golden age. So I can go to the next one. Okay, and of course now how the Nazis have played a big role in comics. Of course, this is post-war. This is Robert Kanigher and Joe Kubert. Joe Kubert is a Korean War veteran. I believe Robert Kanigher was a World War II veteran, and they created one of the greatest comic book characters of all time, next to the Rocketeer, Sergeant Rock. Okay, I got a chance now to do Birds of Prey series that Mark Andrico, who's a guest here, and Mark, and we're just beating up Nazis again. Now the cool thing is that if we go to the next panel, if we may, is Miss Fury. Now, there was a lot of controversy about putting swastikas on comic book covers now. I guess it's all a part of that gentrification of it, of Nazism, what it really was and what these people were, and they weren't afraid to do it back then. I mean, these guys are bad guys. These are evil people. Now, the cool thing about Miss Fury is that Miss Fury debuted in April 1941, 6 months before Wonder Woman. It's the first comic character ever created, illustrated, and drawn, or first created, by a woman, and her name is June Tart Mills. Anyone know who Miss Fury is? Okay. Miss Fury literally is the first Catwoman. If you look at this costume, you see how, I mean, look at the influence, you know? And it's an astonishing story. There's a great book that was put together by Trina Robbins called Miss Fury, the Sensational Sundays. Miss Fury was both a comic book, which was reprinted by Timely, and a comic strip that ran for 10 years from 1941 to 1951, actually 1952. So we go to the next one, please. And I'm bringing Miss Fury back. Next month, Miss Fury #1, the Joy Division, is released with Dynamite Entertainment. And we can go, I'm writing it, Emma Kubert is drawing it. We go to the next one. And we can click over that. That's the cover to #2 as she's in Paris. Miss Fury, it's a story of the Joy Division, it's called. Now, what the Joy Division was, and we were having this conversation before, right? Scott, is that the Joy Division is, anyone know what the Nazi Joy Divisions were? You do, all right, right? What are a few people? Anyone ever hear the band Joy Division?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, right? The story of the Joy Division is that when the Nazis took the Jewish girls, some as young as 12 years old, out of the ghettos, they went through to a camp. Say they go to Dachau, right? And there's one gate here, and there's one gate here. They would tell these women to go this way and to this gate. This was the work camp for certain death. The striped pajamas, the starvation, the whole thing. Those they deemed beautiful or attractive, some as young as 12 years old, some maybe, I'm sure probably younger, was sent through this door. This gate led to Camp Joy. And what the Joy Division was, that they took these women, they coiffed them, they fed them, they dressed them, they gave them this strict military discipline to become dolls. They called them the Dollhouse. There's a great book called House of Dolls that came out in 1955 by a Holocaust survivor. His name is Capt, and his name escapes, his number escapes me. He was a concentration camp survivor. But these women, how many kids do we have there? How old are you? Yeah.
34.
No, you're not. You better
Sorry.
call mom and dad when you get home. And I think you're like 15 years old. Anyway, the
Third generation survivor, though.
well, I'm sorry.
Third generation. Well, my great grandparents
Where's-
died in the camps.
Oh my God.
My grandfather got out in 36. He adopted my dad at age 4, so that's the only grandfather I ever knew on that side.
Well, we're going to come back to you at the end of this, of your family. Literally, these girls were turned into sex slaves for the SS, and they were repeatedly raped on a daily basis. But they were dressed, they were fed, but they were under strict discipline and things that they did. If you go to the next image. And this is now the story of Miss Fury Joy Division is that Miss Fury, Marla Drake, is sent to go and capture the leader of the Joy Division. The war is coming to a close, and he's got to be captured and brought back on crimes against humanity, war crimes. It's not good enough to kill him. The people must know, and this is what the Allies were doing when it came near the end of the war, that these people must be brought up on charges. Hermann Goering is not allowed to kill himself. You know, Hitler is not allowed to kill himself. He's got to be captured. This cover, I didn't color it. It's a little more, if you look at the original's at my table, at my booth. But what the Germans did to the women, now, when the women of the Joy Division, when they brought them in, what they did to them was that they seared, felled her across their chest. They weren't allowed to be touched, they weren't allowed to be bruised, they weren't allowed to be beaten by the Nazi guards or to bruise their beautiful skin, these women. But what they did was that they scarred them like that. And it means, that literally says field whore in German on it. So I know that the image, we're going to fix it, but it's a little sexier than I wanted it to be because of the coloring and what they do, and I guess they didn't quite get what I was going for. But you get the idea. That's taken off the cover of House of Dolls. It's a direct copy of it. I think I have it here. Yeah, here's the book. This is the book, House of Dolls. So I did that. And you can buy this book on Amazon probably for $1.99. And it's a New York Times bestseller, but it's so depressing. But it shows you what the Germans were, the Nazis were at that time. Go to the next one, please.
Thank you for that distinction.
Oh, yeah, well there is. Okay, now punching Nazis. This is Miss Fury. The great thing about Miss Fury is that they kicked the crap out of a lot of Nazis in Miss Fury. And I love this image, so let's get a little fun. This dude right here is an American. He's an American gangster, and he's just pummeling the hell out of this Nazi. For the Greeks, for the Czechs, the Dutch, the French, the Poles, the Belgians, the Slavs, the Russians, the British, and here's the Yankee jackpot. And I just love that. I just love, the comics were fearless then, that they're fighting against. This is an enemy of ours. I mean, you can go to the opposite extreme if you saw how they depicted the Japanese. I mean, incredibly racist with the buck teeth, Mickey Rooney, with the big, thick glasses and stuff like that. But that's one of my all-time favorite panels. You can go to the next one. Okay, I had the honor of doing Sergeant Rock, the Lost Battalion, which I was able to go to. I went to Europe twice. I visited the Normandy beaches where this image takes place. I got to go to the Vosges Mountains and see the places where these battles were fought and won by our Yanks. Sorry guys, forgive me for this. I thought I was going to be able to talk and okay, another image of the Lost Battalion, taken off of my favorite comic creator of all time, Joe Kubert. It's an homage piece. That's actually the cover of Sergeant Rock, of Our Army Award number 274, the first comic book I ever had, the first Sergeant Rock comic I ever got, and then I did a more modern interpretation of it. Can we go to the next one, Constance, please? Okay, and now, we get to this. Right? And you guys laugh at it, right? And it's funny, isn't it? Right? Wonder Woman punching Donald Trump, the President of the United States, in the face. Right?
Oh, you're really super bad.
Yeah, it was you.
Walkie-talkie,
Right? So that's funny. Everyone laughed. Right? Because Donald Trump's a Nazi, isn't he? Right? Now we can go to the next one, please. And my thing, and
the next poll?
Yeah, what's it say?
Real
Nazism. Okay, that's a Nazi. That's what Nazis do. Now I know it's funny to make fun of our political leaders or our political opponents, and it's so easy to call someone who you disagree with, right, ideologically, a Nazi. But that takes away from the memory of that woman holding her child, because that German soldier is only allowed to use one bullet to kill two people. You want to go to the next one? And I think, see, and we can just scroll through it because it's basically what they did. And that's what they do. They're not even partisans. They're just people that look at that. And they all laugh. Look at them laughing at this young woman. And she looks like she's a freedom fighter, Russian freedom fighter with that hat, right? And that's funny. Hang her in front of the people. You can go to the next one. See that? That's what Nazis do. You can just scroll through it. I'm sorry if it's disturbing, but I get to the point where I think we should start to create a distinction of what that does, because it's funny to laugh, right, of what people that we don't agree with politically, but I think that takes away from the memory. What's your name, miss?
Barry.
Barry? Mm-hmm. That takes away from the memory of Barry's family. Right? You please.
I apologize. If you're going to use me as an example.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I mostly agree with you.
Okay.
I do. But I think it's also important, going back to the Be That Guy photo, to remember that everything starts somewhere, and this is not where it started. So I agree with you that it's a bad idea to be using people as a punchline.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also important to recognize that the same way that, you know, when we start punching Hitler is great and I love it. That's also, Hitler started somewhere, and that's a thing we should remember. So if comics are taking present day politics more seriously, as opposed to just punching Donald Trump, I have no problem with it.
Okay. Okay, cool. We're gonna get to more of those things too. We'll get to that too.
Just if you're gonna use me as an example, I'm gonna.
But that's why we're here. I like to have conversations like that.
absolutely.
Again, this is what I say, what they do.
That's my ancestors.
You know what I mean? We can go to the next one, and we're gonna get away from all that. I just wanted to get it. The world was okay. So now Hitler's going across, you know, Eastern Europe. The war in the West after Poland. The war in the West started on on May 10th. May 10th, the Nazis invaded, the Nazis invaded Belgium. 6 weeks later, they were in control of all of Europe. France had fallen, and the world responded with guys like with Chaplin. Now, I'm a huge Charlie Chaplin fan. He's my favorite all-time actor. I just love it, and he made this film, The Great Dictator. The thing with The Great Dictator was that he started making The Great Dictator, I think, 38. It didn't come out till 41, when it wasn't as fun. You know, so we go to the next one. So the world responded so. But the people that did step up, right, was that. Now, if anyone know what that is? That's a sergeant pilot of the Royal Air Force. So, if you ever see the film Dunkirk, right? England stood alone. Right? This is before before Hitler invaded the Soviet Union, and you did have people stand up in a real way, getting to your point, that it wasn't just about fun and stuff like that. The things that stood up were men like this, average age 20 years old, that would go when the Battle of Britain started, the Germans had 4,500 aircraft. I think they had something like, 3,000 bombers and 1,500 fighters. The RAF had 650 planes. And even less pilots. And these men, you can hit it again, please, if you don't mind. In the Spitfire, if anyone saw that, I love the Spitfire. It's a symbol of freedom to me. You can go to the next one too. There's a great painting by Barry. His name is Barry. And you show this image. This is the painting, a very famous painting. And if you look at what it symbolizes, that you have this lone aircraft coming from the brightness and freedom of England into the darkness, into the fray, into the storm, to fight the battle. We can go to the next one, please, Constance. And I guess this isn't what a lot of you thought it was going to be, right? So, okay, Norman Rockwell, who I think is the greatest storyteller of the 20th century. This is a story, give him enough and on time. And it's too light in here, but if anyone sees this painting, you could just see the sweat and the grunt and look at he's blazing with that machine gun with all the shells coming through and all the cartridges coming through and the empty cartridge belt. Go to the next one, please. Okay, now here's another thing. Americans, right? 405,000 Americans were killed in World War II. Over 20,000 of them killed on the Western Front. Here were these boys who went over and sacrificed themselves you can go to the next one, please, to fight for another's freedom. And on the Western Front alone, 300,000 of them didn't come home. This is Normandy again. Look at this. These are our boys going into this. You see those hills right here in Normandy? Anybody see Saving Private Ryan? On this hill and over that are 500,000 Germans. Those paratroopers putting on the war paint you saw before, there were 8,000 of them who dropped into Normandy 6 hours before this invasion. So there was 8,000 US and British paratroopers and Canadians against 500,000 Germans, and they were causing chaos behind enemy lines. You can go to the next one. Okay, and the cool thing too is that when Americans get into the fight, they'll not only steal your tanks and kill your crew, but they'll do it on Christmas. And that's Christmas 1944 at the Battle of Bulge. And I just love that picture of us driving contain tiger tank. Okay, go to the next one, sorry.
The next folder?
Yeah. America, okay, so now my governor, if we could just say it, the governor of the state of New York, again, getting politics coming in, saying that we don't have to make America great again. Stupid slogan, right? Whatever, you know, the whole thing, let's make America great again. And he says America never, because it never was that great. Again, these are the guys that I feel made it great. If you want to go to the next thing, and I'll tell you another bunch of people who think that America was great at one time. Is that it? Oh, I'm sorry, that's the I'm sorry, this is going through that. These are more, you can click through that. These are, I'm displaying all the American, keep going, keep going, and just click through them so they see it. These are the American losses that fought against Nazis and against another freedom. Keep going down. See more, just keep clicking. I'm being redundant. I thought I was going to be able to talk and click, so.
Sorry.
No, you're doing great. All right, now, when people say that America was never great, I don't know if anyone agrees with that or not, but I'll tell you who think America was great. These are the people of Dachau that were liberated by the American soldiers. I think that's pretty great, especially of how many of them died doing it. Again, so that's that. Now we go to the next folder. What's the next one?
Next folder.
Yeah. Never forget, yeah. Okay. Now this is today. Well, this is a few years ago. I think that guy was killed by one of his subordinates. That's American Nazi. Those people walk among us today. You go to the next one. And these marginalized groups, there are people like that. And they should be pointed out, they should be marginalized. These assholes. You can go to the next one. Keep going, that's it. See? The American Nazi Party, whatever the hell that says. But then there's these assholes too. These are the Antifa people. Now because they call themselves Antifa, that say they're anti-fascists, a lot of their means when you burn down buildings and you burn cars when you don't get your way and you start riots, I think that sounds pretty fascist to me. Go to the next one. Again, more than all those idiots with the map. Keep going to the bottom, the last one. Yeah, how's that?
All the way down.
Well, I think let's not go all the way. Let's go with is that let's go with that one right there.
This one?
Yeah. Hopefully we'll pass on. Okay. Now this is what we fight for are our freedoms, and you can click through it now. You know, the four freedoms. If anyone knows the four freedoms, right? FDR's four freedoms, fantastic stuff. Now, the memory now this is a friend of mine who passed away last year. His name's Donald Arbogett. Don Brigette parachuted to Normandy, he parachuted into Holland, he fought through the Battle of the Bulge, all the way to the Eagle's Nest. He was wounded twice in combat, and a more gentle soul you'll never know. So when I say that we should, when we think of things and we call people that we don't agree with, or things like that, Nazis, I think it disparages the memory of people like this, who sacrificed so much, of how many of his friends didn't come home, how he had to spend 3 years of his life that he lost, and his friends, and he would still weep every time I spoke to him. We go to the next one, please. And there's okay, now here's another thing, and I feel that we do it for them. This is my friend Jake McNeese and his wife Martha. This was taken on his last trip to Normandy about 3 years ago. Both of them too passed away in the past 2 years. And I just love that image of here's these people
photo.
that have been together since they were kids. And my whole thing is just think about that. And it would hurt them because they saw this stuff happen. And when these names are thrown out like that, again, for people that don't agree with you, I think we should be more like these people. How they put it past them, but they take things seriously. And if you disagree with me, you could tell me. And if you think, because there are those real Nazis, there are those real Nazi party people that don't agree with you, I think we should try to be a little more civilized with each other. and don't just go to saying stupid names and things like that, because it does disparage the name of them. It disparages the names of the 6 million people that were murdered by this monstrous regime. Is that the last one? Oh, Jack heard me.